and saying what he knew thus far. Talked about that there was going to be a full investigation. And he said, you know, we have inspectors out. I mean, it's construction, it's dangerous, but this is just unacceptable and intolerable. What happened in this case, I have no idea at this time because it was still early on. We're going to find out what just happened. And then he went on to say, you're always going to have this concentration, and it's big equipment, and you know, we need to build high-rise buildings, but we have to find a way to do it safely. And then he goes on to say, we're going to go back to Lisa Calgrassi on the ground, who has, you have someone with you?
Here. Yes, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
We're going to get knocked back here. So I want to talk to William Callahan. You live directly across the street.
Right.
Tell me what you saw.
I woke up at around 8:20 a.m. to a huge crash. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a mirror falling or something. We looked out our window, and there's a crane, and there was smoke and people running away from the building. My sister was on the computer. I don't know. Yeah.
Did you go outside then?
Yeah, we ran outside because we thought there may have been, the other part of the tower may have fallen in our building. Because if it had fallen this way instead of that way, it would have fallen on us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, the crane had been in the neighborhood for a while on this construction project.
Yeah.
Were you concerned?
No.
When we arrived here shortly after the incident happened, there was a very fast emergency response by the fire department and police department. This incident went out, was first reported just after 8 o'clock this morning. The first units arrived here within minutes and confirmed the crane collapse right here in the intersection of 91st Street and 1st Avenue. As we said, as you said, we've gotten several eyewitness reports that this crane was operating here. The building under construction, you can see the roof of it there on the right side of your screen, the one down in the shadows. The crane itself, what's left of it, what's standing, that's what you see in the center of your screen, and everything we can put together, it appears as though the top portion of that crane simply broke off, collapsed, struck the building on the south side of East 91st Street, and impacted the top of that building, as you can see here, in a major way. Apartments on the top 2 floor here, virtually obliterated. The rest of that crane then really slid down the side of the building, taking out balconies along the way before everything came to rest here in the intersection of 91st Street and 1st Avenue in just a heap of rubble and twisted steel. Fire department workers and rescue workers have been here since they first arrived, up in on whether they were construction workers or pedestrians. We'll stay here with this live shot, and we can follow it as it happens.
And John, I guess also we have now been on the air for some 30 minutes, and for those of viewers who are just joining us, we had interrupted Good Morning America breaking news, and something that is becoming a little bit far too familiar and not that comforting to see, that a building that was under construction, a crane at that site, collapsed about 8:05, as you mentioned, John, this morning. It was on the northwest corner of 91st and 1st Avenue, and what ended up happening was the crane actually sort of sheared gently the side of another building on the southwest corner, a residential apartment building there. We've seen that so far it doesn't look like there was any type of internal damage into that building across the street, but yet once again another reminder of what is going on at these various construction sites in the city. And just if you could also recap.
Got that factor, Lori, and unless something slipped through the cracks, but the response to the last crane collapse was so huge, right, and was such an umbrella that even if these cranes sit dormant, you can be reasonably sure that this crane was inspected sometime within the last 3 months since the last accident in March. And you know, I think you would feel good in the city if you knew that every crane here was inspected every 3 months, that it was looked at regularly by the building authorities. You know, you could be looking at a case here of simple, tragic, bad luck, where you've had 2 really catastrophic accidents here within just a few months of each other. And you know, it could be bad timing, it could just be a complete coincidence, but there's no doubt right now that we're looking at back-to-back really crane catastrophes here in the middle of Manhattan that are going to have some long-term effects on, I think, you know, on the greater building scene, the construction scene in New York City as a whole.
Right. What's the, you're in the air, obviously. What is could wind have been a factor in this?
Actually, no. That's why you see us up here. I'm going to say no, right, pretty much outright. Every now and then you see some exhaust from the aircraft coming through the picture. That's why it looks wavy like that. There is no wind right now. You know, wind helps this helicopter hover, and the pilot here, Captain Arthur, has been trying to search around finding some wind to help us out. So whereas in the last crane collapse, wind was mentioned, winds were strong, winds were gusty, This morning, the winds have really been calm since we took off this morning at 5:30 and looked out on New York Bay and saw the conditions as smooth as glass. It remains that way out here right now. I would say off the top of my head right now that wind would be a negligible factor in this accident.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Itself, that was the initial report that they went with, and that's why you see all these folks in there still working underneath basically all angles. Again, it looks like that rectangle might have been the bottom, the base of the crane that would sit on top of the portion that's still standing. And then you've got that white portion that you see in the center of your screen. That, to me, looks like a portion of the cab as well. So a lot of the search and rescue effort right now is going to focus right around that area.
Yeah, it looks like it almost just snapped off. And when you look at the top of it, when you've given us a wide shot of the aerial, and it's just that open top to the crane there, it does look like it just snapped and fell right down.
Yeah, that circle would be the portion where the cab of the crane swivels around from left to right, and that's where it would be connected to the base. And if the eyewitness reports that we're getting right now is that apparently the top portion of this crane just snapped off and crashed into that building there on the left. Again, the building under construction is the northwest corner of 91st and 1st. The building that was struck is the southwest corner of 91st and 1st Avenue.
When you were talking,
workers there at the scene, and basically take attendance and find out who's accounted for and who's missing. Captain Arthur here has worked us into a great position where you can really get a good perspective on how this accident happened. The right side of your screen in the shadow, that's the building that's under construction. You can see the top end of the crane that's sticking up. It looks like the upper portion of this crane is what collapsed, and it fell southbound from right to left. It fell south into the top of that building and then just plummeted straight down to the street. Just there's a lot of destruction up here, Lori, and it's, again, we're going to keep saying this all day, and I'm sure this is going to be the headline for the next few days, is how can this happen again so soon after that major accident a few months ago?
Okay. I think that's what all of us certainly here in the newsroom, as you just said, and certainly other New Yorkers are saying to themselves, again, here we go again, that once again regulations have to be in place a little bit more. I mean, the potential for the loss of life, as we saw on March 15th with 7 people, and the injuries that are involved.
And made the call to 311, didn't get much help there. How frustrated are you now? You were concerned for people's safety. Now you see what this has happened. We are confirming already that one person, at least one person is dead from this. How frustrated are you to be standing at your window looking outside and seeing what was really your worst nightmare?
I am so frustrated. I'm heartbroken for the family of the person that was killed. I'm so frustrated. My baby and I walk by this building almost every single day. I always walk on the other side of the street. I'm scared. I'm frustrated. We moved up here a few months ago from the East 60s, and we were right near the other crane accident in the 50s, right, that happened before we moved. And I just see this happening for no reason. It doesn't have to happen, and I'm frustrated. Now I look back to April, and boy, I wish I had just stayed on the phone and...
Street level, all you're going to see are fire engines, but if you we angle up here, you can see the top of the building that has that damage to the top of it, and then also just the activity. You can see people up, firefighters on these balconies, on 1, 2 balconies up there, sending a rope down to the other, trying to see what kind of damage. The balconies look like some of these look like they're ready to collapse and continue to go down. I'm sure they're trying to stabilize those as best they can so they don't have more of a collapse going on right here. But it really is, the damage to this building is really staggering.
And Lisa, can you see?
Well, clearly the police tape is here at East 92nd and 1st Avenue. We can't go any closer than 92nd, so we're about a block away from the actual site, and then they obviously have this section of 1st Avenue blocked off. As we were making our way down from Washington Heights, the traffic was horrendous. I mean, it was just completely packed, trying to get down to this location. So everything is stopped. Plus, you've got so many people who are just from this neighborhood, just standing around and looking, watching, seeing what's going on. So you've got a pretty good radius, a pretty good buffer. Anything around this area, you're not getting through. If you're stuck in this traffic and you're trying to cut through, you might as well try and find another way, because you're not going to get through here. They're completely in lockdown here.
All right, Lisa, we're now even getting confirmation of 1 fatality from that crane collapse and that site there as well. You're telling Phil about